Howdy folks, I'm back here at the Spaghetti Theater for another Spaghetti Theater review. I'm going with the Twilight Zone again, so join me, won't you, for another lispy narration through the world of the imagination as you let this spinny circle thing pull you right on in. This time I'm going with Season 3's Episode 1. 2. Yeah, that's the title of the episode. 2. And rightfully so, because it only features 2 humans. 1 male and 1 female. That equals 2. See, I'm not totally stupid, even though I sound like it. The female is played by Samantha Stevens herself, in her pre-Bewitched state. It's Elizabeth Montgomery.
Well.
And the male is played by, drum roll please, the great Charles Bronson, in his pre-Death Wish state. But who cares? Charles Bronson is always Charles friggin' Bronson. Always a guy just minding his own business, trying to live his life, until society throws a meat cleaver at him, and he's forced to take action. Charles Bronson style, of course. I love Charles Bronson, as you may have guessed. He's one of the greatest actors ever made. In my opinion, of course. Definitely in my top 5. He's awesome in everything he's in, even if what he's in happens to be a steaming turd. And believe me, he did a bunch of those too. It was a paycheck to Charles Bronson. He didn't give a fuck about the movies or television. And that doesn't bother me at all. It's who he was. He's almost always just playing a variant of himself as a movie character, which is brilliant because it works so well for him. And sadly, he died back in 2003, but he was in his 80s, so he had kind of a long life for somebody born in the 20s. I even went to his grave. He's buried in Vermont, which he loved and had a house there. It is a beautiful state, I must say. Very green, mostly in the summertime. And boy, does he have a great view for a dead guy. May you rest in peace, Charles Bronson. Living people don't have as nice of a view as Charles Bronson does from his grave. What do you think of my new mug, by the way? A gift from my fiancée. She really knows how to get me cool stuff. I know, it's just the logo for my YouTube channel, but it's still pretty neat. So yeah, back to the show as we dive head first right into the Twilight Zone and land somewhere here in the middle of this post-apocalyptic wasteland where ROD Serling jumps right in with his opening narration, of course.
This is a jungle, a monument built by nature honoring disuse.
He loves to do that, Rod. Serling, ROD Serling. It sounds like I'm saying Sterling sometimes, I know, it's the list. Serling, ROD Serling, yeah, I think. So he goes on about the ruins of this once lively city that's now clearly overgrown with vines and shit, and totally void of people. And according to Serling, this is 6 years after the initial bombings that caused all this mess.
It's been 5 years since a human being walked these streets.
That's when this lady comes strolling into town. It's Elizabeth Montgomery, and she's all filthy and wearing this uniform. Yet she still doesn't look half bad. And she has this whole town to herself, apparently. Nice. Hey, she ought to just twitch her nose and restore it back to its former glory. Huh? Get it? Bewitched! But no time for that as the camera just swings the hell away to reveal, hey, it's ROD Serling again! Buddy, how you been? Just standing here in the middle of this destroyed city? Smoking a bud, of course. Lurking around the apocalypse, you weirdo you. And narrating his little heart out about where the hell we are and when the hell we are and what the hell's going on. And the answer? Who cares? Could be anywhere, he claims. 100 years in the future, 2 million years in the past.
Or perhaps it's already happened 2 million years ago.
Don't matter. It's just not America and Russia in the aftermath of the Cold War, circa the early 1960s. You can be damn sure of that. Cause you're in the Twilight Zone now, bitch! ROD Serling said so.
But the place is the Twilight Zone.
And if Rod Serling said it, it must be true. The man is a prophet! I mean, the Twilight Zone is pretty much a parallel universe unto itself anyway. That's the way I see it. I mean, look, he teleported himself to the middle of the apocalypse just to do an opening narration. The guy is magical. He even explains why all the signs are written in English, if this is supposed to be another place and some other time and all.
Or sooner.
And not just the dilapidating remains of the Hal Roach Studios backlot.
The signposts are in English, so that we may read them more easily.
So okay, thanks for that, Rod. It's easier than having to read subtitles too. Nobody wants to do that shit. See, isn't that nice? Rod Serling was thinking of us. Aw, thanks, Rod. You died too soon, friend. But hey, you smoked like a dang chimney, remember? So cut back to Samantha Stevens as she wanders the hell around this old Hollywood backlot where all sorts of classic Hal Roach productions were filmed, when she spots this dress still in the window, and intact too. And by her expression, it looks like she's really into it. She likes the dress. I guess it's way nicer than this skirt uniform thing, yet she pulls it off. So it's her real dream to be a Disney princess, like every little girl. But no time for window shopping, cause new clothes come second to food, as she goes to explore the kitchen of this once lively restaurant, I'm sure. And she goes in through the back entrance. Hey, maybe she used to work here, who the hell knows? So she searches the room a bit and discovers this can of unopened food. Jackpot! It survived the fallout. Somehow. 6 years later, too.
This is the first day of the 6th year.
But it's real good for killing fake spiders. And so she starts to open it when enter Charles Bronson, the Tunnel King himself, the best thing to hit the apocalypse since Mad Max. He's all dressed up in this uniform too. But no time for that because Sam greets him with a meat cleaver, a pan, and then a bottle. Shit, lady, that's no way to say hello to the great Charles Bronson. Only she don't give a fuck that it's Charles Bronson. And it's on, baby. She's got Bronson through a table and on the floor. Wow, she's a slippery little Samantha Stevens too. In this battle royale, Bronson versus Samantha Stevens. Who will win? Well, if she actually had magic, it would be her. But since she's still just a mortal here, Charles Bronson wins by just punching this crazy bitch in the face. And she's down. One punch Bronson. He had to do it. She would have clawed his eyes out, she would have. Plus, how dare you throw a meat cleaver at the great Charles Bronson? If anything, he was here to make your life better. A lonely woman wandering around the apocalypse could do a lot worse than Charles Bronson. Well, Rod Serling is still lurking around out there somewhere. If you want to take your chances with him.
Try Oasis, for the softest taste of all.
And so with her out cold, Charles Bronson helps himself to the can of food. That turns out to be chicken wings. Yeah! Now we get to watch Charles Bronson gouge himself on chicken wings. Never thought you'd see that shit, right? Well, now you get to. Charles Bronson gouging himself on chicken wings. Enjoy it. Really old chicken wings. Must be really well preserved in that can. It's the Pocky Clips. You can't be picky. I know, it's apocalypse. Come on, can't we get beyond Thunderdome?
It's Poxiclips.
So as he eats, he explores this little room when we see this newspaper indicating more signs of nuclear war. Then these dead Tweety birds in the birdcage, who've been dead so long they've turned into skeletons. Little bird skeletons. Nice. I taught Charles Bronson. I did see a Charles Bronson. He then checks out this calendar with no year on it as he ogles Miss February, which reminds him that women exist and hey, there's a chick right here. I don't need to whack into this calendar when I got Samantha Stevens lying right here. But Charles Bronson isn't a pervert, so he just leaves with his can of chicken wings. That's when he spots the Disney princess dress in the window and I guess he likes it too? But not to wear, I hope. Only, I would love to see that now that I think about it. He then wanders more through this wasteland that contains the skeletal remains of every little rascal. And finds this stack of old newspapers, which have also survived the years of abandonment under all the elements of nature somehow. But again, who cares? because it comes with a front page story telling everyone to evacuate the city, which clearly they did. Way to go, people of whatever the hell town this was. He then picks up this old magazine, Universe Magazine. Was that really a thing? I don't know. And it's advertising the new look for the modern woman getting ready to go to war and kill, kill, kill. But in fashion with this lovely gas mask and machine gun. Today's Deb. Was there a time in history where the common woman was referred to as a Deb? Like in the oblongs? However, seeing this Deb reminds Charles Bronson once again, hey, wait a minute, I got me a Deb right here. So he heads back inside the kitchen where he left her. Yep, still out cold. He must have really let her have it. Hey, she was having a panic attack. He had no choice. The nut. So he plays with her face a bit. Don't worry, he's not gonna violate her. He's Charles Bronson. This is the guy who went on a 2-decade killing spree after the rape and murder of his wife and then daughter, but never did get Jeff Goldblum. So disappointing. He then empties the contents of her gun holster on the floor, but it's just a bunch of lady stuff. Hairpins and shit. Charles Bronson don't need hairpins, so he just dumps a pot of bacteria-ridden water on her face to wake her up. But not before removing all possible weapons for her to throw at him aside. And she's awake! Welcome back, Sam! All bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. That's when we find out that the uniforms that they're both wearing belong to that of whatever army they used to serve with.
The only reason I can see for our fighting is that your uniform is a different color than mine.
Meaning they served in opposite armies. They used to be enemies. Or at least that's what they were brainwashed to believe. But the war's over now, so it doesn't really technically matter. And it's been over for years, and this mess is all that's left. Meaningless uniforms from a dead war. We also find out that they speak different languages too. Charles Bronson speaks English and Sam...
You understand my language?
Well, they never really say. Definitely not Russian, no. She only says one word in the entire episode. So Charles Bronson rants on anyway, even though she can't understand him, about there being no reason for them to fight anymore because there's nothing left to fight over, except this dead city, of course. The war is over, and mostly everyone is dead, I guess. It's called 2 for a reason, remember? Well, 3 if you count ROD SERLING. And that's when Charles Bronson declares a state of peace all over the world.
I do hereby declare peace upon the entire world!
That's all I needed to hear. Peace, everyone! Charles Bronson has declared it. So he keeps on talking and telling her how pretty she is, and how he has nothing but honorable intentions, even though she can't understand a word of it. Basically, Charles Bronson is sick of fighting. The man was probably a conscientious objector who got dragged into this shit anyway.
Conscientious objector.
Now he just wants to relax and be free, as the case always seems to be with Charles Bronson. So as usual, society has forced Charles Bronson into a corner and ruined his life in the process, forcing him to go gun happy. Story of his life. So Charles Bronson just leaves and lets Sam have the rest of the chicken wings. See, bitch? He's a nice sharing guy, and you threw a fucking cleaver at him. I'll keep saying it. You could do a lot worse than Charles Bronson. You could still always go hook up with ROD SERLING instead, if he wasn't too busy looking for the last cigarette machine on Earth. So cut to Charles Bronson, who finds this barbershop and decides to do some more urban exploring. So he searches this place until he finds all the proper tools that he needs for a shave, which he does somehow. So back to Sam, who's all done her chicken and tosses the empty can. In the garbage, too. With the condition of this city, I think it's okay to be a litter bug, Sam. But thanks anyway, for being less of a slob than Charles Bronson was with his chicken wings. Whee! She then tracks down Charles Bronson cause, well, now she's been infected and just can't resist his awesomeness. He even says hello as she heads on in, very cautious-like too, with her newfound butcher's knife at the ready. Too bad it wasn't an axe, like Lizzie Borden. She played Lizzie Borden in a TV movie once. So snap. She washes up a bit and doesn't take her eyes off the great Charles Bronson the entire time. Can't blame her there. He's so majestic. Mr. Majestic. Snap again. Don't worry, Sam. He's not gonna hurt you. He's magnificent. 7, So once Charles Bronson is done shaving his face, he heads on out, only to be followed now by Sam. She's taking a liking to him. Again, can't blame her there. He's great. Like Tony the fucking Tiger. He then heads up to this theater that was playing old wartime films or something, tosses some change and takes a gander at this coming attractions poster. Furlough Romance. It looks like a Hallmark movie of the 1950s. Charles Bronson likes this too. He wants to furlough a romance with Samantha Stevens, methinks. Charles Bronson then spots the skeletal remains of a soldier at the theater's door and goes right for his gun too. Sam sees this shit and is fortunate enough to spot another armed skeleton at the opposite door. Probably the skeletal remains of Laurel and Hardy. Serving their country all the way up to the bitter end. Champions of the Foreign Legion they were. But no time to theorize on that, as Sam grabs the gun at the same exact time as Charles friggin' Bronson grabs his gun. So now it's a standoff. They hate each other again. You followed him here, bitch. He let you have the rest of the chicken wings. Charles Bronson, being the sensible one, realizes how stupid this shit is. Lowers his gun and just strolls the hell away. Charles Bronson style. Kicking Harold Lloyd's femur bone as he walks for fun. Back to that store with the dress. Oh, just buy the damn thing already, Charles Bronson. You'll look great in it, I'm sure. Maybe they'll give you a deal, cause it's the apocalypse. All dresses must go. Sam checks it out too, and again, really seems to like it. That's where we get to hear her say her one and only line. In what I guessed originally to be a made-up language. She says,
Procrastinate.
I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, but procrastinate? Procrastinate? Whatever. It actually is a word. But I'll get to that later. Because if you're real nice and stop being such a bitch, I'm sure Charles Bronson will buy that dress for you. So seeing how much she likes the dress, Charles Bronson just takes the damn thing and gives it to her. It's the apocalypse. You can take what you want. He then demands that she put the dress on so he can see how hot she looks in it.
Put it on.
And since she wants the dress, she doesn't object to this. Good. You owe him after throwing that meat cleaver at him. Fucking nut. So she goes to change in this old recruitment center as Charles Bronson, being the gentleman that he is, gives her her privacy and takes a seat outside. No peeky. I'm sure ROD SERLING is watching from the roof with binoculars. The weirdo. Sam's about to disrobe too and show off her witch's teeth when she's distracted by the posters on the wall. Not being able to understand English, she didn't realize that this was a recruitment center, or it used to be a recruitment center, for soldiers who would be fighting against the side she was on. Her enemy again. So this puts Sam back on the warpath now that she remembers that Charles Bronson was once her sworn enemy, and goes right back into crazy bitch mode. Picks up her gun, runs outside, and takes 2 pot shots at Charles Bronson. Just narrowly missing him. What the fuck, you crazy bitch? You nearly took Charles Bronson's head off. See? Even he's confused. What the fuck, lady? Why don't you get in your broom and fly the hell out of here? She keeps that gun on him, though. He gave you chicken wings, bitch. Tossed a dress at you. And this is how you thank him? By trying to scare him off with your pea shooter? So Charles Bronson's like, fuck this bitch, and just leaves. You had your shot, Sam. It's not every day that Charles Bronson just strolls into your life, shares chicken wings with you,
Eat.
and gives you a dress.
Put it on.
Only to have you take 2 shots at him with whatever the hell came out of that gun. Some future bullet or something. Go take your chances with ROD SERLING then. I don't think he's gonna share his cigarettes with you though. I'm sure he'll run out of cigarettes and then chop you up and smoke you. So that night, Sam sits alone with her precious gun and that dress still as a rainstorm pours outside, perhaps regretting now about how much of a bitch she was to Charles Bronson. You could be lying in the comfort of his warm arms right now with the rain outside, but no, you had to be a bitch. Then, cut to a little something for the lady. And ROD SERLING, if he's into that. A topless Charles Bronson shot. And for a guy from his time period, he's way more beefier than the average leading man, if you know what I mean. Check that out, Samantha Stevens. I bet Dick York didn't look as good topless. Yep, he tossed the army rags and found some civilian clothes. He's back to just being a regular guy trying to live his life and just grow his melons, or peaches in this case, as we see that he's found some of Granny's preservatives that survived the apocalypse somehow. That's when a car door slam gets his attention. And he spots Sam again, stalking him from behind a vehicle, because she just can't resist him now. He is the only guy in town, and he is Charles Bronson. Unless you count Rod Serling again, who's probably fighting a pack of wild dogs right about now for half a pack of Luckies. Charles Bronson then yells to her, "Get the hell lost, you had your shot, bitch."
Go away. Go away!
You had your shot at the great Charles Bronson. He would have avenged the hell out of your death. But you blew it when you almost took his head off with that pea shooter, and 3 times before with that meat cleaver shit. Besides, Charles Bronson doesn't need anybody. He'll probably just end up raped and killed anyway, just like everyone else that he loved. Because society won't give Charles Bronson an even break. Fuck you, society. Time to be a menace to it.
You go take your ward a more suitable companion.
He don't need you now. He's gonna go get Barbara Eden instead. And you can settle for Dick Sargent, I guess. That's when Sam steps out from behind the car and reveals that she's wearing the dress. And she looks great in it too, even if it's not practical for traveling the wastelands. And even though she has that gun now, she's not giving up that butcher's knife. And yeah, she really pulls off the Disney princess with a butcher's knife look. She's definitely way more Lizzie Borden here than she is Samantha Stevens. Wasn't her hair blonde when she was Samantha Stevens? Charles Bronson then comes down from his balcony to really drink her in when he says,
Procrastinate.
yeah, that one word of her language that he knows. And remembered, procrastinate or whatever.
Procrastinate.
He has deducted that this word means beautiful, I think. I'm assuming here. I'll get back to it later. He even gives her a jar of Granny's preservatives that he found. You're lucky he forgives you, Sam. It's a good thing you look good in that dress, or he would have just ditched you and left you to die. Like, if you were Mimi from the Drew Carey show, you wouldn't even fit into that dress.
Procrastinate.
That's a civilian territory.
But then again, would there be fat people in the apocalypse?
So Drew Carey's nemesis Mimi survived the apocalypse.
And if it were Mimi from the Drew Carey show, that fight for the chicken wings would have been way more violent. Bronson probably would have lost that one. So the two walk off together. Only now, she knows that she has a good thing in Charles Badass Bronson. He'll be safe with him. They then stop for a moment so we can see Sam finally crack a smile. Now that she trusts and even loves Charles Bronson. There she is. There's our Samantha Stevens. She is real pretty in a regular down-to-earth kind of way. I like it, even with all that shit on her face. The two then continue on their way as Rod Serling cuts back in with his closing narration now, letting us know one simple fact. This was a love story about Charles Bronson finding companionship with Samantha Stevens, only in the Twilight Zone. Where else could something like that happen? In the Outer Limits, maybe? I don't know, probably not. Different kind of place, maybe. Thanks, Rod. But, sadly, if Charles Bronson loves her now, she's probably fucked. Because everything Charles Bronson loves is eventually murdered. And that's it. That was the Charles Bronson episode of The Twilight Zone 2. Which leads me into my final thoughts on this awesome episode. Thanks mostly to Charles Bronson, of course, with the support of a gun-happy Samantha Stevens. As you can probably tell, I'm a fan of the works of Charles Bronson. From The Great Escape, to Death Wish, to Death Hunt, and every movie headlining this great actor, because he really had a face for the movies. Then, there's Elizabeth Montgomery. I think she did great too. She looks good with that butcher's knife and crazy eyeshadow. And of course, she was most famous for her role as Samantha Stevens on Bewitched, and later played Lizzie Borden in a TV movie about Lizzie Borden. She sadly died at the rather young age of 62, back in I think 1995. This episode was also one of the few episodes not written by Rod Serling himself. It was written by a guy named Montgomery Pittman. This entire episode, as I pointed out through my review, was filmed on the back lot of the old Hal Roach Studios in Culver City, California. It was about to be pretty much torn down, and it was about 2 years later. And it looked pretty much like it was falling apart, so it was perfect for filming this apocalyptic looking city episode of The Twilight Zone. It was one of the last things to be filmed there. A lot of Little Rascals, Laurel and Hardy, a lot of silent movies from the 20s were all filmed here at Halbridge Studios. Which is kind of strange because the backlot that housed the original house from Bewitched just recently got torn down. Gone forever. I didn't even know it was still standing. I figured it would have been torn down by now. But nope, it was still standing and just recently got torn down. By Bewitched house, it was never real. None of these places were really real. They're all facades, it's Hollywood crap. It's cool shit though. But it seems like it would have been an easy episode to make. All you got is 2 actors and this big empty backlot. Then I want to mention that one word that Elizabeth Montgomery says in the episode. Procrastinate, I'm just going to call it that.
Procrastinate.
Procrastinate.
After looking it up, I found out that the word actually means pretty, which is similar to beautiful, I guess. Pretty, beautiful, same kind of thing. And the language is, yup, Russian! Even though, you know, they were trying to say it wasn't, but it was actually a Russian word. So they clearly were trying to say that he was an American, she was a Russian. But that's kind of strange, because Charles Bronson, who is of Lithuanian descent, played the American, and Elizabeth Montgomery, who's actually of American descent, played the Russian. Then finally, there's their uniforms. The symbols on the uniform are that of Confederate origin, I read. And were probably just old costumes that they were reusing, that were just laying around the studio. And they probably altered a little bit to look like they were from a different time and place. And I guess that will do it for my look at the Twilight Zone's Season 3 opener 2, starring the great Charles Bronson and a soon-to-be witch, Elizabeth Montgomery. Thanks again to all my subscribers. I appreciate the comments. And feel free to like, I hear that helps. And if you made it this far, sorry about all the choppy editing and my inability to speak without a friggin' lisp. I can't help it. But if you made it this far through the video, it must not bother you that much. But it is why the editing is so choppy. I have to say my lines like 3, 4, 5 times to try to get it right. I'm not a great speaker. I know that. I'm not the best narrator in the world, but hey, I try. No one else wants to do this. I do it for nothing. And thanks to the people in the comments who've told me I look like a white iced tea. That's an awesome compliment, thank you. A white iced tea. I love iced tea. Remember this movie? Surviving the Game. Ice-T, Rutger Hauer, and a bunch of other awesome actors. It's from the 90s. It's my favorite Ice-T movie. But yeah, remember these cases with the little cardboard flap? Yeah, it's that old. Oh yeah, Gary Busey. By 2 different people, I think, that I look like a white iced tea. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You're a fool if you don't get car shield. So adios for now, folks, and I'll see you at the theater.